let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did Citi do this week?
It's time for Mattress running the numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now. Today's main event, best ways to fly to Hawaii. For some reason, I've got Hawaii on my mind. I'm not really sure why, and I'm kind of eager to go back. So it's been fun collecting up all of the great ways to fly to Hawaii for our main event today so we can dream about our next trip there.
I mean, my mind is always somewhat on Hawaii. I'm always kind of looking at award availability to Hawaii, even when I have no intention to go anytime soon. So it'll be exciting to talk about that today. But before we do, don't forget that you can always find the timestamps in the show notes. So if you're looking to skip ahead to a specific segment or to return to one later on, you can always find those show notes in the description wherever you're watching. And speaking of wherever you're watching or listening, don't forget to leave us a comment, leave us some feedback, give us a rating, give us a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, enable notifications. We appreciate all of those things. Now it's time to drag out this week's giant mailbag.
In today's giant mailbag, we've got Nikki 2009 via Apple Podcast Reviews. Nikki gives us 5 stars, and the subject line is the hands down best podcast and blog for points and miles. And she goes on to say, I can't say enough good things about Frequent Miler. I found this podcast 2 years ago, and it's changed my life. I went on my honeymoon to Australia and New Zealand just 6 months into the points and miles world and didn't pay for a flight or hotel for 2 straight weeks of travel. I've flown business class to and from Tokyo on points and earned globalist status with Hyatt. This team is incredible and the best place for all your points and miles information.
Wow. Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. That's awesome. By the way, 6 months and you spent 2 weeks in Australia. So you 6 months into the game, you spent 2 weeks in Australia flying and staying all on points. That's amazing. That's fantastic. Well done.
Yeah, great job, Nikki. And thanks for leaving that review. We love every comment and review we get is great to read and hear from. And it's really terrific because this is an example of how I often say this is one of the rare examples of a thing where it sounds too good to be true, but it actually is true that you can do all this like traveling for free. The catch is you have to use your brain and like really understand this stuff and kind of avoid some of the big mistakes that banks want you to make, for example, because most of our points come from banks who are trying to get us to sign up for credit cards, and it's easy to make a mistake like not pay your credit card bill in full and then end up owing them a lot more in charges and fees and interest than you're getting in terms of points and whatnot. But if you're careful, you really can make dreams come true with this game. And so I love it.
It's a lot of fun to play, and we're glad that you're playing it out there, Nikki. So thank you for playing along with us. Well done again. All right, let's talk about this week's card talk. This week's card talk, we have an interesting one up, the Sonesta World Mastercard. Sonesta, like, what is Sonesta, Greg?
Sonesta is a hotel chain that previously didn't have a lot of properties, but back in 2021, they bought a bunch of properties, and so they increased their footprint tremendously. They bought a number of previously Marriott properties, a bunch of IHG properties, and I think there was a chain called Red Lion. I think they bought all of those. So they've grown quite a bit, and we decided to talk about them today because there's currently a best ever welcome bonus for their credit card. So right now you can get up to 125,000 points after only $2,000 spend on the card. And so that sounds big and exciting, but people who haven't heard about Sonesta might wonder, well, what the heck good is that for me? They have some properties, their own properties, like originally in the Caribbean and Central America and stuff. But some of the ones that they acquired in 2021 that are of interest, I'm just going to name a few to give you an idea of what kind of properties these points might unlock for you. there's the Royal Sonesta Kauai Resort, which formerly was the Kauai Marriott Resort. And so if you've got your mind on Hawaii like we do, that's an option right there. In Chicago, a couple of the Kimptons have changed to Royal Sonesta properties. There's the what was the Kimpton Hotel Allegro, and also what was the Kimpton Hotel Palomar are now both Royal Sonesta hotels. Similarly, the Kimpton Palomar in Washington, D.C. changed over to the Royal Sonesta, Washington, D.C., DuPont Circle. So those are just a handful. There's a lot more. But to give you, I just wanted to give some ideas of some that people might be likely to be interested in.
Yeah, I mean, the Kimpton hotels have long been popular. So if you're a fan of Kimpton, then you've got a number of options that have now become Sonestas. And, bigger places like the Kauai Marriott Resort that, probably large resorts that maybe you've visited in the past using Marriott rewards points. Maybe you liked it. I haven't been to that specific one, but I imagine that there are some readers who have. And so you may be interested to know that, yeah, now if you have Sonesta points, then you could potentially book that. So we got to talk about the card then. Is it worth it? What are the details? What do we need to know about the card? Well, first, there's no annual fee the first year, $0 introductory annual fee for the first year. Then it's $75 a year, no foreign transaction fees. You'll earn 3 points per dollar at Sonesta properties, 2 points per dollar on airfare, car rental, and dining, 1x everywhere else. So pretty ho-hum on the earning side because 3x Sonestas at best, because you can find plenty of cards with transferable points that offer 3 points per dollar on travel or on hotel spend at least. And the 2x airfare, car rental, and dining, again, there's plenty of cards that earn 2 or better on those categories that have more flexible points. So I wouldn't really probably consider using this for ongoing spend. Although if you do, you do get 30,000 bonus points each year with $7,500 in card member spend per year. So that might change the calculus a little bit because that's like an extra 4 points per dollar if you do exactly $7,500 in spend. So then all of a sudden it might be, perhaps more interesting to use this card for various things. You get automatic gold tier status, which Sonesta at some point here completely redid their elite program. So now gold tier status comes with more points when you're spending at one of their properties. Welcome gift. Most importantly, probably continental breakfast, but apparently that's not everywhere. Is that only some places that you get continental breakfast?
The terms are unclear. It just says not all locations.
Mm.
So,
Oh, that's great.
well, so in the past, I do remember previously the free breakfast benefit at the elite level was only available at sort of their higher tier properties, not the lower ones, probably because the lower ones just
Don't have
include free
breakfast.
breakfast. And
Oh,
so,
yeah. Okay.
so it may just be like a lawyer type thing to say, hey, this isn't really a benefit at all properties, but I don't know whether this is a lawyer type thing or a
Yeah.
Marriott type thing where
Right.
you
Or a
breakfast
Marriott
really is
type thing.
variable depending on where you go.
Sick burn. Uh, yeah, well done there. Well, so yeah, when you say all of that, it seems to make sense to me that like I don't know Red Lion. I've never stayed at a Red Lion, but in my mind, maybe because it's red, I associate it with Red Roof Inn and Motel 6 and like that level of property, which I don't even know if do they have breakfast at those properties? I'm not sure. I haven't stayed at one in so long. I'm
You're,
not. So maybe they
you're
just don't even
wondering
have it.
whether you're wondering whether they have free breakfast at properties that have red in their name in order to find out whether the
Well, I'm
Red
saying that,
Lion properties offer
well,
free breakfast.
well, I'm
Is that
saying
what's
that
going on here?
maybe some of their brands don't have any food at all. Like I stayed at a Candlewood Suites at some point for the first time in a long time, and I was like, "What? There's no breakfast? It's not HG. What do you mean there's no breakfast?" But it's a long-term stay brand, so they just don't have breakfast.
So my guess is that my memory of the Red Lion properties is that most of them are pretty darn low tier properties. I don't know much about them, but let's say that's true. I don't know whether they offer free breakfast or not, but my guess is if they don't, you probably wouldn't want breakfast there anyway. So,
So you won't be too upset that you don't get breakfast. All right. Well,
yeah,
so since probably most people are not going to use their points for the Red Lion, and we say that, and that's really unfair because I have no idea what a Red Lion is like. So maybe
that's
there are some
true.
nice Red Lions, but assuming you're going to use your points for something else, what are they worth? I mean, what are these going to get you? What is 125,000 points worth, Greg?
Yeah, when you go to redeem your points, the each hotel seems to have a fixed award price. Like they don't publish an award chart anymore, but for example, when I look at particular hotels, I might see that this one is 22,500 points per night. And so, the value of the points varies based on what is the cash rate at the time that you're booking. And I think, Nick, you said you observed by looking at a few properties anywhere from what, 0.75 to
Yeah,
what?
to about 1.4, just over 1.4. Because, I guess that's true with most
Yeah,
brands, most hotel points. It depends on what the cash rates are as to what the value is. And so at higher demand times, the value per point is much higher. I found some places in the Caribbean that were expensive during, certain periods of the winter time that, where you were getting closer to 1.4 or even a little bit over 1.4 cents per point. But other
yeah,
places, yeah, it was three-quarters of a cent per point. And it really did range. I got everywhere kind of in between too, like, zero point 0.9, 1.1. So I don't have a great
right.
handle on what points are worth, but they can be worth more than a cent per point in at least some cases.
Right, right. But we like to use conservative numbers, and a number that I found just by clicking around the website is that there's a promotion for some kind of prize thing, and in there they declared that points are worth 0.8 of a cent each, so zero point 0.8 cents per point. So if we go with that, what they have on their website is the value of points, then the 125,000 point welcome bonus is like worth $1,000. And, as Nick was saying, you could use it towards much more than that. But I think that's a fair estimate, or, a reasonable redemption value, if you will, for 125,000 points. Um, and it
That's
also
not
means
bad
that if you spend towards yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, that's very
for
good for a welcome
$2,000
bonus.
spend.
And if
Like
you
for a very low spend requirement, that's quite a lot of value. Nice return on $2,000 spent.
Actually, when you put it that way, especially, yeah. And if you spend each year, the $7,500 to get the 30K bonus, that 30K bonus at zero point 0.8 is worth $240. So that's a decent return on that spend. And that's not counting the points you earn from that spend as well.
Right, right. So if
So
I did the
yeah,
math right, that's like an additional 3.2% back, if we at that value towards Sonesta stays, keep in mind. But that's not bad because then even if you're only earning 1 point per dollar and we say the points are worth 0.8 of a cent, that's about a 4% return on that $7,500 spend, which is decent for everywhere else type spend. And maybe then it would be worth using it as at a Sonesta and stacking that on top of the 3x that you earn from the card at a Sonesta property. So moral of the story is don't take a siesta on Sonesta.
are you going to sign up for this card, Nick?
No, I'm not. Probably not. I have enough hotel cards and hotel points. I don't need another hotel card in my pocket right now. I probably have enough free night certificates and points to not need to worry about points for some obscure chain that I've never bothered to be excited about in the past. If I had, if I didn't have a lot of hotel points already, and B, I were planning a trip somewhere where Sonesta has a footprint. A few readers pointed out on previous posts that Sonesta has a really good footprint in the Caribbean and in some places where other chains don't. And so that if I were doing that, like if I was planning a trip to St. Martin, it looks like there's a really nice place in St. Martin that's a Sonesta, then maybe I would for that specific purpose, but I'm not. So no, I'm probably not going to run out and sign up for it. What about you? For the sake of
Right.
science, Greg, you should probably get
Uh,
this card and stay at some
Yeah,
Sonestas.
I mean, so if it was just for me, if I wasn't in the position I am as a blogger, podcaster, et cetera, I wouldn't get it exactly as you. It's like if I had my eye on Sonesta property and had that in mind, sure. I mean, this is a very good deal for that. But I think for the sake of science, like I've become a bit of a credit card collector where I like to have all the ones that are useful to talk about in this hobby, and this one's up there. So as a interesting card,
Yeah.
it's not again not interesting enough if I wasn't a publisher of this content, but interesting enough as a publisher to want to have it, want to be able to experience it and write about it and talk about it. So I think either my wife or I will get it.
Well,
Yeah.
I think maybe worth a mention here is that the most of the properties are 30,000 points or less per night. There's a couple that are 40 or 50,000, but the majority of properties appear to be 30,000 points per night or less. So one
Right.
person signing up for this card, you're probably getting 4 nights at most Sonesta properties. So
Right.
if you're in two-player mode and both signing up for it, that's 8 nights. You can get more than a week with $4,000 spend. That's from that angle of it, not a bad deal if you have, again, if this Sonesta property lines up with your needs. I could totally see somebody like Nikki, who was, 6 months away from planning a honeymoon, that said, in 6 months, she collected all the points and miles for 2 weeks of travel. Well, I mean, this would be a pretty easy way to pick up perhaps a week, a trip with very little spend compared to other cards, to get that much time.
Right. Right. For sure.
Right.
So yeah.
So
So
interesting.
interesting
Interesting
stuff.
anyway. There you go. All right, let's talk about something crazy next. What crazy thing did Marriott and Starbucks do? Marriott and Starbucks, Greg, what are they up to this week? What's crazy about that?
Oh boy. They came out with a big splash promotion where they're now partnering up so you could link your Marriott account with your Starbucks account and
That sounds awesome.
earn I can't quite say big numbers of points. You can earn a trickle. You can earn a tiny trickle of points. So first of all, you'll get double stars on Starbucks purchases. That sounds good, right?
Yeah, I like
But
Starbucks. I drink
it's
a lot of
only
coffee, Greg. That sounds
yeah,
perfect.
might as well get double Starbucks point stars, but it's only while you're staying at Marriott properties.
Mm.
Okay. All right. How about the other side? Can you earn Marriott points? Yes. You can earn 100 bonus Marriott points when making 3 Starbucks purchases during Marriott Bonvoy weeks, which so I guess
Woo!
they're going to have these special weeks where instead of earning no stars, which is the default, or sorry, not instead of earning no
No
Marriott points
points.
at Starbucks, there'll be these weeks where if you happen to spend 3 times at
Three
Starbucks
times. Three
during
times in the same
during
week.
that week, you
Special
get
week.
100, not one, not two, not 10, 100 Marriott Bonvoy
100
points. And we all know
points.
how far 100 Bonvoy points will go.
So, based on our reasonable redemption value, if I'm doing the math right here, I think it's a little bit less than $1 worth of points here we're talking about, right, Greg? If you
Yeah.
go three
Yeah,
times during
exactly.
the same
So
week
even
and
if
it
you
happens to be a special week, you're going to get less than $1 from Marriott.
right, right, right. So woohoo.
Yeah,
I loved
woohoo indeed.
Stephen our Stephen Pepper is the one who wrote up this deal in quotes. And I loved he got a little punchy in part of it. He wrote, "We received an almost 1,500 word press release to celebrate this partnership. That's a latte words for a partnership that's not very grand. I want to filter out the non-important stuff." And so I guess the filter, I missed that. I was trying to bold
Oh,
the parts where
oh yeah.
he did puns. I missed the
Right, right.
filter part.
Oh, right.
I wanted to filter out the non-important stuff as sharing that would be grounds for dismissal.
Loved
Yeah.
it. Threw in latte, threw in grande, threw in filter, threw in crowds. Loved it. It was great. Great Starbucks puns there. Well done. Well done, Steven. Yeah, I mean that's pretty. I mean, in fairness, what's a coffee cost? 3, 4, 5, $6, depending on which one you get. So, like, how much of a rebate would we really realistically expect to get in terms of Marriott points? But what a ridiculous promotion.
Yeah.
If from no other standpoint, but the one that, like, if you're staying in Marriott a lot, then presumably you've got elite status and you're having coffee at the hotel, right? I mean, like, I guess maybe you'll get another cup of coffee. I get a few cups of coffee throughout the day, but I was like, what is this? I mean, who thought that this would be? I don't know. I guess they know that their customers are frequenting each other, and I guess it gives them an opportunity to collect some data across the thing. But wow, talk about not excitingly rewarding.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's enough of our promotional roast for now.
Right. So let's move forward. Let's get out of that. And let's go to Mattress running the numbers for a more exciting hotel promotion than 100 Marriott Bonvoy points. Well, Mattress run the numbers with the Wyndham Rewards Ultimate Hotel Pass. Wyndham Rewards is out with a really creative promotion that I'm excited about, even though there's like almost no chance of probably getting this. But nonetheless, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. So tell us about it. What do we got going on from Wyndham?
Yeah. So if you get a chance to buy this, and we'll get to that, you will get 30 nights of Wyndham hotel stays for just $499. Um, so, obviously that's an incredible deal because if you only use, five of those nights, that's less than $100 per night. Um, now the limitation is that those 30 nights of hotel stays must be redeemed over the next 3 months, which specifically you have to stay by the end of September. So October 1st is the last possible checkout date for these 30 nights. You will get a dedicated pass concierge to assist with all reservations, modifications, and cancellations. You can use past nights to book an extra room for accompanying guests. So, for example, you could get two rooms at a property and use two of your 30 nights when you do that. You are limited to just two, though. You can't book 30 rooms for one night, which I was disappointed at because I thought, oh, if I get this, I will invite frequent miler on air listeners to come stay at a at a Wyndham where I've booked 30 rooms, but no,
That
that's
would have
not
been a
going to
lot of fun.
happen.
Would have been a lot of fun.
You can't stay in one property for more than 10 nights. There are limited blackout dates, but they don't explain what those are. Taxes and resort fees are included at most hotels and resorts, so that's great. Uh, there's a few properties you can't use your pass at. Wyndham, Concord, Isla Margarita, the H Hotel, the Bank of Montreal Institute for Learning,
Hmm.
Echo Suites Extended Stay by Wyndham Hotels, and Vacasa Vacation Rentals or cottages.com, which the latter two are kind of obvious that you can't use it for those. Um,
That all sounds awesome.
and
I want
it
one.
does, it does. So, okay. So Nick, what do you need to do to get one of these?
Well, all you need to do is be chosen to purchase one. So there are going to be 25 of these passes available for purchase. So 25 lucky people will be able to purchase these. But what I think is kind of interesting is the way that they're doing that. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those things where everybody just got to click. And, everybody's going to say, oh, it was a scam. I was clicking right away and it didn't work because, of course, there's only 25 for however many people are clicking. However, that's not how they're doing it. How they're doing it now is that you pre-register right now, wyndhamrewards.com/hotel pass. So if you want to buy one of these when they become available, you pre-register now between now and I think July 3rd, if I remember correctly. And then on July 8th, 25 potential pass holders who pre-registered are going to be randomly selected that they have their opportunity to claim and purchase a pass, and they're going to have 48 hours to claim the pass. If they don't, then a new name will get pulled. So this is kind of interesting because you register now.
Yeah.
You have to take the initiative to go and register now. And then maybe you get lucky and you get pulled. And if you do, it's not a click, click, click. You've got 48 hours to log in and buy your pass. So I think that's actually kind of a cool way to do this. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'm excited about it. Yes, the chance is probably pretty low of getting it. On the other hand, if we go back about 6 years or so, when Wyndham did a kind of similar promotion where when they first partnered with cottages.com, they offered a deal where you could book any property for 15,000 points per night. It didn't matter how many bedrooms it had. And it was, if I remember right, I think it was limited to 50 people booking it.
40, I think. I think it was 40.
It was a small number
Yeah.
anyway. And so at first we just figured, oh, it's going to be all gone in seconds, so we didn't bother. But then we heard from, I think it was a reader who told
Mhm.
us that she was able to book it, and then Nick got on and was able to book one, and then like later I got on and was able to book one. And so, you know, um, in that example, I think Wyndham is enough under the radar. If it was Marriott, forget it; it would have been gone in half a second. But with Wyndham, I guess it was enough under the radar that it was doable. And so maybe this will be like that too. Maybe it won't be, so many people that it's that unlikely to get it. And I do think that there's a good chance that a lot of people who are contacted that win will not
Right.
actually pull the trigger and buy it within the 48 hours. So you'll have more chances. I would love it for one of our listeners to get this, or multiple listeners even. Go to wyndhamrewards.com/hotel pass, register. Why not? It doesn't hurt to register. And then be sure to write in when you win this thing. And of course, be sure to write in with your experiences when you actually stay at a bunch of hotels. Wyndham, I mean, they're known for having a lot of like mediocre hotels, but they also have some higher end
Mhm.
properties around the US, around the world. And so it's worth checking into what they've got because there's some exciting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to definitely register me. I'm going to register my wife. I'm going to see if
Same.
there's a restriction as to how old you have to be. I'll register my kids if I can. I didn't
You
even
do have
catch
to be
that. Probably have to
18
be
or
18.
older.
Bummer. So
Ah,
not the
yeah.
kids. But yeah, I mean, it seems like I particularly like that you can book two rooms too. So if you've got a bigger family, then you can book enough rooms to be able to accommodate hopefully the people in your family, or bring somebody else with you to do a trip for a few days. I think that was a great idea that differentiates us. And to be clear, we're not like, there's no affiliate thing here. We're not telling you to go do this because we earn anything off of this at all. We're just excited about it because it looks like fun. I think it's a little different than the cottages.com thing in terms of the odds of getting it, because that cottages.com thing that Greg was referencing, you had to not only be paying attention but have Wyndham points, which at the time where there was no
That's
Wyndham
true.
Earner business card. There was a Wyndham card, but it was very, very niche. So I think not very many people that
Yeah.
read about it even had Wyndham points, and there's no way to transfer them back then. Now there are ways to transfer them. So I think that, that increased the odds on that old promo some. So I don't know. This will still probably not be great odds, but maybe not astronomically low. And like you said, certainly not like if Marriott ran it. So I'm going to register and give it a shot and cross my fingers and hope. And even though I don't have a ton of availability during the potential booking window, I'll move things around and make it work if I'm able to buy one of these. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
same here. I think it would be really fun to just be like searching all over, trying to find the best ways to use it
Yeah.
within your constrained schedule, and so
Right. Right.
uh,
It would
love
be
it.
a lot
Yeah.
of fun. It'd be a lot, and then writing about how to get to those places too. It would be fun to be able to give this a shot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll hope for the best. Okay, so that's our mattress running the numbers. Let's talk about this week's award talk, because we have quite a few different things to talk about in award talk before we even get to the main event. So starting out, we've got a new reasonable redemption value for Hyatt World of Hyatt points. What's that, Greg? How much are World of Hyatt points worth?
Yeah. So with each of the hotel programs, each of the main ones, what we have been doing for years now is looking at what's the median value you get for your points within hotels in a selection of markets within the United States. The reason we do United States is because we know from past data points that most people redeem their points within the US. So what we're trying to do with these reasonable redemption values is identify the value you're likely to get when using your points if you're not trying too hard to optimize. So we like that medium value. The last time we did this with Hyatt was a couple years ago. Hotel prices were very inflated at the time. It was before Hyatt had made a few changes with moving properties up categories and things. So uh, we expected the reasonable redemption value, which was 2.1 cents per point at the time. We expected that to go down. And in fact, when we redid the data, it did go down. It went down to 1.7. So that's not to say that your points are suddenly worth less. It's just that the amount that we are showing on our website and use in our calculations now is less. And the good news is that the 80th percentile, meaning if you are looking for good value, the 80th percentile is 2.1. So you could still certainly get 2.1 or better value with Hyatt points. But if you're not trying very hard, we're looking at around 1.7 as the value you're more likely to get.
Yep. Yep. And that's based on doing a bunch of different searches. And Greg laid out a whole methodology for this that involves searching in a bunch of different cities and different times of the year, different days of the week, et cetera. So quite a bit of data between Greg and Tim got collected and put into that to come up with the new reasonable redemption value. So, of course, we can't search every property every day all year long, but that's as scientific a number as you're probably likely to get.
There you go.
Okay.
Next up, Aeroplan is out with a really interesting promotion with the charity Miles for Migrants, which let me just say for a second, Miles for Migrants is a charity where they actually use airline miles to help people who are often like fleeing difficult circumstances to get out of like a war-torn country, for example. And the cool thing is, I think you've seen this too, that they actually use miles wisely. Like they don't just use them for and get poor value, but they use miles wisely and get really good value for booking flights for people. And so the normal way to donate to them is by donating your unused miles. And they have deals with all these different airlines where they can that makes it easy for them to accept, your Delta miles, your United miles, whatever. If you have extra miles that you're not using or about to expire, you could donate to them. But this Aeroplan deal is a little different. This is for donating cash to Miles for Migrants, and Aeroplan will give you miles when you do that. And so for every $100 you donate, they'll give you 7,500 miles, which is kind of remarkable because even if you didn't care about this charity at all, that's buying miles for 1.33 cents each, which, I mean, yes, during Aeroplan point sales, which there's one going on right now, you can get it for miles for a tiny bit less than that, but that's still like a good sale price for Aeroplan miles, very solid price. Um, so I think it's a great opportunity to do good and buy miles cheaply. There is a maximum of 75,000 miles you can earn this way. So $1,000 in donations will get you the max
Yeah.
75,000 miles.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I had heard you talk about Miles for Migrants before, and I had seen other bloggers write about it. But to be honest, I had ignored the coverage and not taken a close look at it until I saw them present at the Travel Summit in Toronto, and I was really impressed. Really impressed for a lot of different reasons, but one of the reasons was that even though I know people had said that they use Miles well, I don't know if I fully believed it. I think that probably some part of me was still skeptical about that. But my goodness, they went through the cents per point that they get with each of the different programs that they use and talked about the techniques they use to book things and whatnot, and that they're working with people in general who've been approved for asylum somewhere, but just need to be able to get there and don't have the money to buy a cash ticket. So Miles for Migrants is working on getting those people from where they are to where they already have their paperwork and everything lined up. So it is I think a really good charity that's doing excellent work, it seems, and I'm impressed with their attention to detail in terms of how well they use miles. But of course, they still have to pay taxes and fees on those flights and all sorts of other things. I'm sure they have plenty of operating costs. So it makes sense that they're providing an opportunity here to donate cash as well. And I commend Aeroplan for working with them to incentivize that. That's awesome. And of course, if you wanted to be really generous, you could also donate the miles that you get because they will use those Aeroplan miles and use them well. So Aeroplan, I know, is one of the airlines that works particularly closely with them, and that they find great value in using the miles because, of course, Aeroplan's got like 41 different partners, so they're particularly useful miles for Miles to Migrants as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Cool
great. I
promo.
love this.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Next up, Citi is out with a 15% transfer bonus to Cathay Pacific Asia Miles through July 20th. Eh,
Maybe that's unfair. They've got some prices on awards that aren't terrible. Things have they devalued a bit over this last year, so awards have become a little bit more expensive. But if you find some availability, they in some cases are not a bad option. So with a 15%
Yeah.
transfer bonus,
Yeah.
like Greg said.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple things that you might want to have on your radar to do with Cathay Asia Miles. One is to fly Cathay itself. They have better award availability for their own members. Um, you can, if you're flying really far. So their award chart's not particularly generous, but there's a maximum distance to it, and so if you fly past that distance, the price doesn't go up. And if you add on lower cabins for that longer distance, you can actually reduce the price. So, for example, if you fly first class from Chicago to Hong Kong, I don't know what the current pricing is for that, but you can actually lower the price by going onward from there in, let's say, economy to somewhere far away like South Africa, and then that would lower that price for that flight, first class flight from Chicago. So that's just an example. One thing. Another thing, sometimes, and it doesn't seem to be every time, um, Asia Miles has cheaper award fees for flying British Airways. And so they have decent award pricing from East Coast-ish cities to London on British Airways. And you'll often find that the taxes and fees you'll pay through Asia Miles is a lot less than you'd pay through other programs flying British Airways.
Yep. Yep. That's certainly a sweet spot for using your Cathay Asia Miles. That was the one that came to mind. They said, oh, with a 15% bonus, that could be attractive anyway.
Sure.
So maybe worth a look. Use your award search tools to make sure you can find some availability and double check that at the Cathay Pacific Asia Miles site before you transfer, because I don't always see availability there that I expect should be there, and I don't know whether you can book it over the phone or not. So you have to do some legwork. You have to be willing to work for it. Like Greg said at the beginning, a lot of these things do require a little bit of time and effort, so you may have to put some in if you're going to try and take advantage of that one. All right. In terms of something that doesn't require much time or legwork, Enterprise is offering a status match, right? And that's valid through February of 2026. So you can match status and get it for almost 2 years here, year and a half anyway, with Enterprise. That sounds like it could be good, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, Enterprise elite status doesn't give you a lot, but it's always better to have status than not if you're going to book through these companies. And their status match website basically says they'll match from a large number of hotel or airline elite statuses, and so chances are you've got something. You've got IHG Platinum, or you've got Marriott Gold or Hilton Gold or whatever. You can get some level of status from Enterprise. They don't explicitly say what they'll match you to, but if you look in the comments of our blog post about this, you'll see people reporting what they got from their various statuses. So it's a good place to check what you're likely to get if you do this. On the other hand, there's very little work involved in doing it and just seeing what you get. I mean, some status is going to be better than none if you are going to be booking through Enterprise.
Yep. There you go. There you have it. And last but not least, from Award Talk, Amex referral bonuses are now reaching new heights, as high as 45,000 points per referral on some cards. Not all cardholders have been targeted for this. Some cardholders have been targeted to earn 45,000 membership rewards points for each approved referral. Keep in mind, you can only earn up to 100,000 points from each of your Amex cards per year in referrals. So that means basically 2 referrals with this will
almost
essentially almost max you out. I'll get you the 90,000 of the 100,000. So, but still only 2 referrals, almost maxing that out. That's insane. 45,000 points.
Yeah.
What?
No, I mean, that's great. Most people aren't maxing out their referrals because, they don't have that many friends that they want to make ex friends by trying to push credit cards on them. And so, being able to get 45,000 points is fantastic. And remember that with Amex, you can refer someone to just about any, not any, but almost any Amex card, and still get the 45,000 points. So let's say you have the Amex Gold card and you get one of these offers for a 45,000 point referral. The person who's interested in signing up for an Amex card doesn't need to get an Amex Gold card. They could use your referral link to get almost any Amex card that they're interested in. They would get the normal welcome bonus for whatever it is they sign up for, and you, if they get approved, will get the 45,000 points. So that's a fantastic deal.
Also worth mentioning that even if they are not eligible for the welcome bonus on the card that they open, as long as they open it and get approved, you still get your 45,000 points. So let's say you're playing in a two-player household and player two has had the, I don't know, the Amex Everyday card before that has no annual fee. Then you could refer, and so they're not eligible for the welcome bonus. You could still refer them and they could still open that card that has no annual fee. So it's not going to cost them anything but perhaps a 524 slot. And you'll get your 45,000 points. Better yet, maybe refer them for a business card, the Blue Business Plus that has no annual fee. Or I think the Business Green often has a waived annual fee in the first year. I don't know whether that's true right now or not. You have to take a look and see. But essentially my point here is that you could end up with 45,000 points that don't really cost the person opening the card anything. So if you're playing in a two-player household, that could be a great way to pick up some easy points.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Business
and
Green,
good points.
Yeah, Business Green might be an interesting way to go as well, because sometimes a Business Green card holder will get targeted for a nice upgrade offer to the Business Gold. For example, my son just took advantage of one of those, and so if you've already had, if the person who gets the Business Green has already had the Business Gold, it could be a way to get, even if they're interested in getting the Business Gold again for themselves, to get a an upgrade bonus later on. But it's dependent on Amex sending you that offer.
Right. So a lot of, ifs and buts and whatnot. But if you've been targeted for the 45,000 points, the key point here for you is that there are certainly ways to take advantage of that. And I would recommend finding a way to refer someone, because 45,000 points for a single referral is a pretty amazing haul. I mean, that's better than the welcome offer on numerous Amex cards, right? I mean, like the everyday preferred, the Blue Business Plus, that's a higher welcome offer than you're going to get on tons. The Business Green card doesn't have a offer that high. Frequently, the Amex Green card doesn't have an offer that. So you could be doubling or more, tripling, quadrupling what you would get for one of those, sort of lower end Amex cards with this referral bonus if you're targeted.
Yeah, and you'd be able to fly to Hawaii in first class, at least in one direction, with fewer than those 45,000 points.
If you find availability.
If you find availability, and if you use one of the programs we're going to talk about during today's main event.
So I think it's time for the main event, Greg.
Main event time. Best ways to fly to Hawaii. All right. So we have a number of ways that we're going to talk about to use points to book cheap award flights to Hawaii. But first, I think it's a really good idea for us to talk about cash deals that are widely available, because the award deals we're going to talk about are dependent on airlines releasing award space, and that is not a common thing for them to do between the mainland and Hawaii. So let's start off with cash options, and I'm going to kick this off by talking about something that's fairly new. In not long ago, Delta and Amex revamped the Delta credit cards, and so now the Delta Platinum card and the Delta Reserve card, both of which annually, upon renewal of the card, will give you a Delta companion certificate. They changed up those companion certificates. So any companion certificate you get deposited to your account as of, I think it was February 2024 or later, has the ability to book companion tickets further out. It used to be only domestic, like continental US flights, but now you can go as far as Hawaii in one direction. You could go to the Caribbean, you could go to Central America. So you could fly much further with these companion certs. And so you could fly all the way from, Northeast US to Hawaii and add your companion for free with one of these companion certificates. So that's a fantastic deal.
That's a great deal. So that could be a way to save a bunch of money on a cash ticket. And, you have to do the math and decide, okay, well, is that a better deal than booking an award? Even if you find award availability, it might be the case that a companion certificate is a better deal than using your points. So it's worth at least looking, certainly if you've got Delta companion certificates. Similarly, if you're an Alaska Airlines Visa card holder or the business card holder and you have an Alaska companion fare, same thing. You'll have to take a look and see, well, will that work out to be better? Because you can book a companion for just the taxes and fees. And so, or $99 rather, plus the taxes and fees. So that could work out to be a better deal. Now, if you're kind of like an old Alaska card holder, that's an automatic card benefit. But if you opened your card since I think January 18th of 2023, I could be wrong on the date there, somewhere around there, then you have to do $6,000 spend per year in order to get that companion fare code. But at any rate, if you have an Alaska Airlines companion fare, then it's worth checking the price of flying Alaska. But you do have to fly in Alaska. The companion fare can't be used for partner flights. So you'll have to find
Right.
a good price
And
on Alaska.
yeah, and the Alaska one is limited to economy cabin. The Delta one, it depends where you got your companion cert. If you got it from the Delta Platinum card, then you're limited to flying main cabin economy. If you got it from the Delta Reserve card, you could buy a first class ticket or an economy ticket and add your companion for free,
Very good.
plus
Excellent.
taxes and fees.
Plus taxes and fees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Next up, the Southwest Companion Pass. That's always a favorite. And since they started flying to Hawaii, they have allowed the companion pass to be used on flights to Hawaii, just like anywhere else they fly. So Southwest Companion Pass, of course, remember, if you earn 135,000 Rapid Rewards points in a single calendar year, you can bring a companion with you for just the taxes and fees, just the usually $5.60 each way domestically. And that is true whether you buy your ticket with cash or you buy your ticket with points. Doesn't matter. Either way, you can add your companion for just the taxes. And it doesn't matter when you add your companion, as long as there's an available seat for sale. You could have bought your ticket 6 months ago, and the day before the flight, you could add your companion if there's availability. So the Southwest Companion Pass can be very appealing for flights to Hawaii. Again, it's just going to depend on the cash fares, but that's another companion ticket that's worth a look if you have access to it. Because remember, the credit card welcome bonus points count towards the companion pass. So historically, the best time to try to earn that is after October 1st and complete the spend in early January. So you earn a companion pass that's good for almost 2 full years. Although right now, I think still maybe the welcome offers on the Southwest cards are increased. And so it might be an appealing time to go after it for some folks now also. But anyway, that's another one to consider.
Yep. And finally, under cash options, vacation packages. So you'll see the ability to buy vacation packages both through airlines websites like Delta Vacations and so on, and also through, Expedia Travel and wherever. And this is hit or miss, but it is sometimes the case that vacation packages, the whole package, including the airfare and hotel and rental car, can cost less than it would cost you to buy the airfare for everyone involved by itself. And I've had that happen personally, where I've booked vacation packages in the past for my family of three, without hotel but with rental car, and the whole price was significantly less than if we had just bought airfare by itself and didn't have a rental car. So that could be a great way of saving money as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And finally, I guess let me mention, if you're not very familiar with Google Flights, another thing to keep in mind and take a look at is, if you go to Google Flights to look at cash prices, you put in your home airport or whichever airports you're willing to fly from, because remember, you can search from multiple airports just by putting in a comma and selecting more airports. And then you could search just to Hawaii. You don't have to pick a single Hawaiian airport, because sometimes you'll find that, maybe the flight is cheaper if you're going to go all the way to Maui than if you just stay in Honolulu or you go to Lihue or Hilo or wherever it might be. And it probably doesn't make a huge difference to you, especially if you're going to visit more than one island, or you can buy cheap inter-island flights, especially with Southwest these days. So
Yep.
it might be worth taking a look at flights to other Hawaiian islands, because there sometimes can be a significant difference in price.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's jump into award pricing now. Let's start with economy awards. How cheap does it get flying from the U.S. to Hawaii in economy class?
Well, the cheapest deal for flying in economy class is going to be booking through Turkish Miles and Smiles and flying on United. So you can fly United for 10,000 miles each way in economy class from anywhere in the continental United, anywhere in the US to Hawaii is going to cost you 10,000 miles one way. So you could be flying from New York or Boston or Los Angeles or Chicago or Dallas or Grand Rapids. I don't know if United really serves Grand Rapids, so I'm not sure. But presumably, anyway, if you can find Saver Reward availability that United makes available to partners, which, as Greg mentioned earlier, is going to be a barrier for a lot of these, but a particular barrier for this one because United has gotten really stingy with how much space they make available to partners. But if you can find flights that are available to United's partners, then you can book for 10,000 miles and $5.60 each way through Turkish Miles and Smiles for those United flights.
Right, right. Another downside about it, other than just having to find United Award Space, is also that Turkish can be difficult to work with. So if you if you could get a good deal elsewhere, you might have less trouble. But lots of people have booked these many times without problems. So your mileage may vary there. Um,
Mhm.
Another great option that's brand new is using Finnair Avios. So you may remember that Avios are the currency that are used by quite a few different airline programs, British Airways, Iberia, Qatar, Aer Lingus, and now Finnair as well. And you can move them around. So if you have Avios in any one program, you can move them to Finnair if you need to. Finnair has a word chart where you could fly from anywhere in the U.S. via with Alaska on an Alaska flight or flights for 13,500 miles in economy, or an American Airlines flight for 15,000 Avios in economy. So you know that those are really cheap. One downside at the moment, the Finnair website does not show American Airlines or Alaska flights when you search online, so you would have to book these through calling Finnair.
But still, that seems like a potentially great deal, especially from the East Coast at 13,500 miles one way on Alaska, if you're out of New York or Boston. I think Alaska serves
Yeah,
Boston too, and certainly DC. I mean, that seems like a fantastic deal, particularly when you consider that there are frequently transfer bonuses to Avios. So we frequently
right,
see
right.
25% transfer bonuses to Avios, and sometimes even more. I think we've seen up to 40%, maybe during the pandemic. Maybe
Hmm.
we saw 50 at some point. So with the right transfer bonus, this is basically as good as the Turkish United thing, but probably easier, less stressful, and particularly easier to get things fixed if something goes wrong. I would bet. I don't have direct experience. I
Right.
can't confirm that dealing with Finnair is easier than dealing with Turkish, but I had a few Avios on the fact that it's probably easier to get Finnair to reissue a ticket if a flight gets changed or something. So that would make this appealing to me if I were planning another trip to Hawaii. I think I'll definitely be looking to see if I can find Alaska award space.
Absolutely. Another great one, Alaska also redid their award charts not that long ago. And if you're using Alaska Miles to fly Alaska itself, their price for flying from the mainland to Hawaii is 15,000, starting at 15,000 miles. And so, Alaska, because on their own flights will charge kind of whatever they want to, just like American and Delta and United do. But theoretically, anyway, you could find them starting at 15,000 miles one way.
Theoretically, there you go. All right, so that's from anywhere in the US, but what about from like the central US west for people that live kind of in the middle of the country or westward? What are the best options for those folks?
So if you have Singapore Krisflyer miles, they have a partnership with Alaska, and you could fly economy from certain airports, sort of central and west coast, for anywhere from 13,000 to 14,000 Singapore miles one way.
Yeah, so that's basically about the same, more or less, as Finnair, although fewer transfer bonuses and hard expiration policy on Singapore miles mean that I probably wouldn't be transferring to Singapore to
No,
make that booking. But if you already have Singapore miles, well, then it could be a good use.
I think
So
that's the key. If you already have them, then that's a way to use them. But yeah, I would definitely prefer to use, Finnair Avios over Singapore if I had to choose one or the other.
Hmm. Good. All right. And then of course you also have Alaska or AA would be, I think, 17.5, I think,
So,
from the central to the west or from the
so
central to the
using
west coast,
Alaska
right?
miles, yeah,
Mhm.
using Alaska miles, you can fly American Airlines for 17,500 miles one way from the West Coast, but also as far east as Dallas.
Yeah.
They go further than just the West Coast as far as that goes for 17,500. So that's not bad at all.
Yeah, yeah. All right, good. What about the West Coasters? So those of you who live on the West Coast, you're spoiled with lots of different options for booking flights to Hawaii, including one being that we do sometimes see really good airfare sales from the West Coast. So sometimes it'll make more sense to just buy a ticket. But if prices are high and awards are available, let's talk about some of the best options. So you could use United Mileage Plus to fly on United. Starts at 11,100 miles from the West Coast. Now I see you put that in the notes, Craig. Is that real? Is that fake news? I've never seen that. Is that in there somewhere?
Yeah, I use Seatside Arrow to find the cheapest flights, and that came up. Now there were like two or maybe three dates from LA that
Yeah.
had that price. I mean, United's going to charge
You never
whatever they
know.
want to charge, and
Right.
so do they happen to be running a special right now? Maybe. I don't know, but I did at least see such a thing existed at one point in time.
I'm
Uh,
kind of teasing there because truth be told, I did book a Hawaii to Orlando for 12.5 through United a couple of years ago. I ended up having to cancel that, but they had like special pricing to Orlando of all. I don't know why that was it for 12.5 from
yeah.
Hawaii. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, you kind of never know. It's the box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get with United.
Yeah. And the same can be said for American Airlines and Delta as well. Like they could theoretically have prices that low because they're not going to tell you in advance because they don't have award charts for their own flights. Um, Aeroplan, if you happen to find United awards from the West Coast to Hawaii, it starts at 12,500 miles to do that.
Now, for somebody
And
who's maybe newer to this, you might say, well, why would I book for 12.5 if United's charging 11.1? And the answer to that is that those aren't necessarily correlated. The US programs, United and Delta and American will charge whatever it is they want to charge on a particular day, but sometimes they'll make those flights available to partners. Even though they're charging a ton of miles, you could potentially book the same flight for just 12.5 through Aeroplan if it happens to be one that United makes available to them. It's not only the cheapest flights that they make available to partners.
that's a really good point. And then, of course, you might have Aeroplan miles and not have United miles. I mean,
Also true.
maybe you donated to Miles for Migrants and got some
Right. Right.
Aeroplan miles, and so that would be a good use.
You'd only have to donate
Um,
what $150, I think, to end up, or yeah, maybe a little more than that, but less than $200 to have enough miles to book that.
that's pretty good. Now you could get to Hawaii. You wouldn't be able to get back with
Oh,
that,
who wants
but
to get back?
you know, who
Put
wants
me
to get
there.
back exactly? Um, another program that's great for shorter distance awards, so flying from the West Coast to Hawaii or the other way, is Qatar. Use Qatar Avios to fly either American Airlines or Alaska for 13,000 Avios one way.
So you'll save 500 Avios overbooking through Finnair and presumably can book that on the Qatar Airways website. So nice little bonus there as well.
Yeah, you can.
I
A
did.
big difference between booking with Finnair is that, yeah, you can book it directly, but with Qatar, that 13K price is only from the West Coast. The Finnair price is from anywhere in the US.
Yeah. And so far we're all talking about economy redemptions here. Don't worry, we'll talk about
Yeah.
flying up front too. Good luck finding availability. But yeah, so these are all the economy redemptions, so otherwise known as the realistic potential possible awards you might find. So that's Qatar. What's next?
So you could use your Flying Blue, your Air France KLM Flying Blue miles to fly Delta. And from the West Coast, they have a distance-based awards for Delta. From the West Coast, it starts at 18,000 points one way.
There you go. If you want to fly Hawaiian Airlines, if they have availability for their Savor Awards, it's 20,000 miles one way from the West Coast to Hawaii. It's the same price if you book through Virgin Atlantic Flying Club, also 20,000. So if you find an award that's available on the Hawaiian website for 20,000 miles, it should also be available to Virgin Atlantic for 20,000 miles. Why would that matter then if it's the same price? Well, because sometimes we see generous transfer bonuses to Virgin Atlantic Flying Club. I think there's a 30% transfer bonus going on right now from one of the various transferable currencies. So that means your 20K would cost you, I don't know, less than that. So 15K about or so, more or less, a little bit more than that, 16K. So nonetheless, you could book for fewer points through Virgin Atlantic if you catch a transfer bonus. Otherwise, Hawaiian 20K one way, maybe
Right.
okay.
Now,
Mhm.
right. Now with Virgin, you're not going to be able to see that award online. You'll have to call Virgin to book that. One way to make sure it's bookable is to search JetBlue's website, which will show Hawaiian awards. And JetBlue has the same pricing from the West Coast, 20,000 points to fly Hawaiian to Hawaii. So they vary on how much it costs from the East Coast, but all three of them, Hawaiian Miles, JetBlue Miles, and Virgin Miles for flying Hawaiian Airlines between the West Coast and Hawaii costs 20,000 points.
There you go. All right. And then, of course, American Airlines is variable. So you have it down at starting at 20,000 points, but I think it's, it could be a slot machine. We don't really know how much American
Right.
is going to charge any day of the week, right? So,
Yeah,
so
I use Seatside Era to look over the course of the year, and that was the cheapest I could
cheapest.
see was
Yeah.
20,000 points. Yep.
There you go.
I was
And
actually
Southwest,
surprised
of
by
course.
that.
Oh,
I,
sorry.
I thought I would see some dates less than that, but I didn't.
Yeah, yeah, I would have thought that too, but yeah, but that's a good way to search and get an idea of how much is the lowest right now anyway. Of course, you never know when they're going to run a flash sale, so it can be worth keeping an eye on it. I check AA pretty commonly, although now that I'm using PointsPath, I just use the browser where I have PointsPath installed for to Google Flights now, and because that will show me the American Airlines price, so it's a little bit faster. It's saving me the time of not having to go to the American Airlines website thanks to the points path extension.
Yeah.
So I like that. And then finally, Southwest, of course, also variable, just depends on the cash cost of a ticket. You get around, I don't know, 1.3 ish cents per point, more or less. It's a little murky with Southwest, but around 1.3 ish cents per point for Southwest flights. So when cash fares are cheap, that can be a way to fly for a reasonable number of points.
Yep. Yep. All right. Let's get into the good stuff. Let's say you want to fly up front on your way to Hawaii. Eh, Let me first say that. So when we talk about first class flights, we're generally not, and talking about going to Hawaii, we're not usually talking about the equivalent of an international first. We're talking about something that's like usually a regional first class. So it's it's a bigger seat, more leg room. Usually not lie flat, but there are lie flat options to Hawaii. Most programs treat these flights to Hawaii, what we call first class, they treat them as business class for the award pricing. So, we're going to talk here about what the programs charge for business class flights between mainland U.S. and Hawaii.
Yep. Yep.
First
So,
up,
yep.
tell us about Turkish, Nick.
I mean, the best deal if you want to fly in comfort and style to Hawaii is to book a United flight through Turkish Miles and Smiles because it's just 15,000 miles one way from anywhere in the US to Hawaii, or really to anywhere in the United States. You could be flying to Alaska, you could be flying to Dallas, doesn't really matter where you're flying. It's 15,000 miles one way in business class on United. If you can find that,
Yeah.
good luck. It's this is one of those unicorn awards that I've I've seen it once in a while. I once booked one from New York on the nonstop New York to Honolulu and flatbed seats, but then I couldn't fly it and had to cancel a trip. And so that was one time, and I haven't seen a single seat on the nonstop from Newark to Honolulu, and I don't know how long. Looking at a year's worth of availability at a time through
Yeah.
Seat Spy, I haven't seen one. So good luck. I think it's very unlikely, but maybe close in, you get lucky. And certainly from the West Coast, I think there's a better chance that you might find an option on United. And if you do, 15,000 miles one way is a really good deal. I mean, you're not going to get better than that. And
Oh, it's
the front of the end of
No,
the plane to
no,
Hawaii.
that's incredible. And United does have a number of routes where they feature lie flat seats in first class. So you could have a very comfortable flight if you can magically book this. The one trick I know of, and I don't even know if it still would work, but there was a while where I was monitoring these, setting alerts for seats to open up. And what I saw, the pattern I saw was that United often opened up first class awards to partners on the day of the flight. And so you could theoretically be in Hawaii and watch for, and when you need to get back, watch for the flight to open up. A lot of flights are like afternoon flights, so you book it first thing in the morning and hopefully fly it that afternoon. That's about as good as you're going to get.
That's the kind of
About as good
flexibility you're
chance
going
as
to
you're going to
need.
get to do this.
Yeah, in order to be able to
Yeah,
successfully book that,
you need to be very
unfortunately.
flexible to do that, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that one is unrealistic for most people, but one of those things that every now and then, I mean, we all hit a home run now and then. So that will be your home run ball that you'll swing for and hope to connect with one time. Finnair, though, is potentially a good deal for flying American Airlines up front. Not nearly as good of a deal
Yeah.
as using Turkish for United, though, right?
Right, right. But 38,000 points one way for business class, flying American Airlines. So American Airlines is much more likely to open first class award space to partners than United for these routes. And I'm not saying that it's likely you'll find it when you want to go, but I'm just saying relatively, there's a lot more award space out there. So this one, yes, it's more than double the price of what Turkish would charge, but it's much more realistic that you might be able to find that.
Yeah, keep in mind that if you're sort of central or west, then you could potentially book those same American Airlines flights through Alaska for 35,000 miles. So potentially a few less miles, although much harder to get Alaska miles than it is Finnair Avios.
Um, 35,000. Isn't that, I thought Alaska charged, oh, for the West Coast. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, for
Okay.
up to 4,000 miles in distance, I think, right? So that covers, I think, Dallas, as far as Dallas to Honolulu, I looked at.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah. I got that
yeah.
lower in the notes. Yep. Um, the another thing that works for anywhere in the U.S. That Alaska flies is to use Alaska Miles to fly its own metal first class for 40,000 points. Now, as things stand now, Alaska doesn't have any lie flat seating, so you're going to be in regular bucket seating, but still first class, not bad.
Yep. All right. Next up after that, what's our next one here?
Uh, Using Hawaiian miles to fly Hawaiian for 40,000 points one way. Um, and Now they have like their saver pricing and standard or flex pricing. So this is their saver. So 40K is the least you'll find for flying Hawaiian first class. And you'll find it much more often on the West Coast to Hawaii than you'll find it on the East Coast, but it's theoretically possible to find 40K from the East Coast as well. Um, one there's a couple of interesting things about if you want to fly Hawaiian itself. One is that Hawaiian offers upgrades from economy. So if you buy an economy cash ticket, then it's possible, if there's upgrade award space available, to upgrade to first class for as few as 25,000 Hawaiian miles one way. So that could be a much more realistic way if you want to fly first class in Hawaiian from East Coast-ish or even central areas to Hawaii. I think that the chance of getting that is much higher than getting a saver award from the get-go in first class.
Yeah.
Another thing
Yeah,
that intrigued,
probably. Go
yeah,
ahead.
another thing that intrigued me is when I was looking this up, uh, there was a note that said that those with Hawaiian Platinum or Gold status, or with the Hawaiian Airlines Mastercard, they have access to additional discounted flight awards for travel on Hawaiian Airlines. So maybe if you have status or you have the Mastercard, you might have better luck finding the award space you need. It's unclear whether you also have access to more upgrade award space, Not at all clear from what it wrote there, but maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So that's potentially of interest, I think, and one to keep an eye on. If you do find the 40K Saver Award availability, keep in mind that just like we mentioned before, Virgin Atlantic potentially being a good way from the West Coast of the United States anyway. And I know we're talking about anywhere in the US right now, but since we're talking about the 40K Hawaiian from the West Coast, it's also 40K via Virgin Atlantic, which again, if you catch a transfer bonus, could be 31,000 miles.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about now options for if you're in central US. One option, which we mentioned briefly already, is that if you have Alaska miles, you can fly American Airlines from as far east as Dallas to Hawaii for 35,000 miles one way in first class. Um, Now, from the West Coast only, you have the programs that have more like distance-based pricing where you have some good deals. Aeroplan, Flying United starts at 25,000 from the West Coast. Now, uh, that's also dependent, just like Turkish, on United opening award space to their partners in business class. So good luck there. Um, maybe you'll have better luck using Qatar Avios to fly either American Airlines or Alaska Airlines for 38,750 Avios from the West Coast. And finally, as Nick just mentioned, you could use your Virgin miles to fly Hawaiian for 40,000 miles to Hawaii from the West Coast in first class. And again, with Virgin, you're not going to see that availability online through Virgin's website. You'll have to call to book that.
Very good. Okay, so you have a few options there. Great. So I think that obviously it's going to be a little difficult to get the business class award availability, but if you do, we've got a number of different options to book it. That last one, by the way, Qatar, the 38,750, that's a little bit more than what Finnair would charge for the same flights, right? Or the Finnair price is only on American Airlines, not on Alaska, right?
That's right. That's right. Finnair has different award charts for each partner, and they charge more in business class for Alaska for some reason.
Yeah, that's right. So and Qatar, I think you should be able to book on their website. So that'll be a nice feature there. So how do you
Mhm.
find this stuff? Like if you want to be able to find one of these awards, we've talked about
Yeah.
how hard it can be, but we didn't tell anybody how to do it. So how do you find them?
Right, right. So I'm going to give an example using a specific tool of how you can find it. If you're, let's say your dates are really flexible and you just want to know, can I ever fly? Can I ever take advantage of this deal? And so I'm gonna talk about using Finnair Avios to find American Airlines award space. What I would do, I'd start with seats.aero. And in order to do what I'm about to describe, you do need to be a pro user. So you need to pay the fee for the program. I love this tool. It's so useful for this type of thing where you have a lot of flexibility and you just want to see when are these beautiful awards actually available? And I'll tell you what, for flying Hawaii, that's where you really need a tool like that because these awards are
True.
so rare. So here's an example of how you could use Seats.aero to find um, American Airlines flights that are available to book with partners like Finnair. Um, I would go in, I would set it to explore Qantas. Why Qantas? Well, because for one, Finnair's not an option. So what I need is another program that partners with American Airlines and where Seats.aero is going to show American Airlines flights as bookable. So you pick Explore Qantas from the menu, and then you tell the tool to show flights from North America to North America because Hawaii is considered part of North America for this purpose. You change the date range to full year, so you're looking at all the data available. And then there's a drop-down box that says arrive. So you could pick which airports you want to filter to. And so put in HNL, LIH, OGG, and KOA, which are all the airports that American Airlines flies to in Hawaii. And if any of them aren't available, just don't pick it. That means that Seats.aero didn't see any flights arriving in that airport, and that's fine. click on oh, okay, so now what you have is a table of all these flights that Seats.aero found. One of the headings says business class. Click on it to sort from the lowest price to the highest in business class. And then you want to, let's say you only want to look at American Airlines flights, you can filter to airlines and filter to American Airlines. And so now you're going to see flights from different parts of the US or from Hawaii itself to Hawaii. And now what you can do is, well, actually, you won't see Hawaii itself in this example because American doesn't fly Hawaii to Hawaii. So what you can now do is search for airports of interest. Ignore what Seats.aero says is the price, because what it shows as the price is going to be the Qantas price, not the Finnair price. But the point is, if it's bookable by Finnair, it should be bookable. I mean, if it's bookable by Qantas, it should be bookable by Finnair as well if it's an American Airlines flight. So once you find one that looks good, maybe it's from Dallas, maybe it's from Chicago, whatever, then click the little info icon to the right, because that'll cause Seats.aero to refresh that result and see if it's still there. If it's still there, then theoretically it should be bookable with Finnair Avios. And then at that point, you're going to need to contact them either by calling, or maybe their online chat feature might work to do this as well. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. There you have it. I think the key takeaway there for anybody new to these tools is that exactly what Greg said, that this type of trip is exactly the type of one where an award search tool is indispensable. I mean, it's really, really useful because it's hard to search all of the various programs and all of the various days from all the various airport combinations. And using a tool like Seats.aero for that, for this specific purpose, is going to be really useful, particularly if you've got the flexibility where you're not like, okay, I'm going to go to Hawaii during this specific week. Because if that's the situation for you, then it's going to be difficult potentially to find the award availability you want. But if you're more open, you're retired, you're mobile, you have the ability to work remotely, etc., then using a tool like this is going to be, again, super helpful for finding what are my options. So, and that was exactly how you go about doing it, because it's not necessarily intuitive. It's not like you just use Seats.aero to search American Airlines. I think it's a really important point that you're going to use it to search Qantas, because that's another one world partner that should have access to the same space, or that rather we should say that Finnair will have access to the same space that Qantas does. So,
Right.
so yeah, there you have it. That's how you do it. So lots of different ways to get to Hawaii. What's your favorite out of all the options we talked about today?
Well, one of my favorites is probably, because it's almost always available, is the Delta Companion Cert, that I can now use my companion certs to fly two of us for essentially half price, and that's a very just a great option, especially for me flying out of Detroit. Delta now has a nonstop between Detroit and Honolulu, so it's just extremely convenient. Most of these others would require at least one stop, if not two, for me to get to Hawaii. So a little less exciting. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to continue to look for the Turkish thing. I think, with
Yeah,
United, I'll continue to look for it. But I think the one that stands out to me now is Finnair. I think that the Finnair program has actually quite a few different interesting sweet spots in it now. But flying Alaska for 13.5 from the East Coast seems pretty appealing to me. Especially if I'm able to. I don't know if I would be or not. I don't know what Finnair's rules are in terms of routing rules, but if I could combo it with a long layover, like an overnight layover on the West Coast, that's just a lot easier to manage the trip to Hawaii with a family.
sure.
So I'm going to be on the lookout for an opportunity to use Finnair Avios
Yeah.
probably for
Yeah,
the next trip.
it's exciting to me to see not just Finnair but also Alaska showed up multiple times
Yeah.
as best options. Both of them have new award charts, and Alaska particularly, people were upset about losing some of the sweet spots Alaska used to have, but we at the time like analyzed it and said, you know what, those sweet spots were like very rarely useful to most people, and it looks like the new sweet spots they have will be more widely applicable and more, widely useful. And I think that's proving true as we get more into it. So I think that's really great to see. And don't forget, Alaska allows stopovers on most types of itineraries. And so, just like Nick was saying, you should be able to fly to LA or Seattle or somewhere and stop over if you want to, and then go onward to Hawaii for the same price.
Yep. All right, great. I think that wraps up our main event for today and brings us to this week's question of the week. So this week's question of the week came into the giant mailbag, and it comes from, let's see, Daniel. Dan, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. He enjoys the show, but he says, I was wondering if you could help me out. I suffer from an annoying mystery illness that's something like chronic fatigue syndrome. I work a full-time job, but it takes all my energy, so I don't have much gas in the tank when it comes to a side hustle. You've mentioned reselling a few times, and I think this might be the easiest path for me to earn points with business cards. I'm not really comfortable with the risk of buying groups, but I was wondering if you're able to share some ideas of possible products I could buy online and sell through Facebook Marketplace or some other outlet. Profit would be nice, but honestly, I'd be happy with just getting the credit card points and maybe a shopping portal bonus. I'm generally well enough to travel and I love doing it, but I feel like I'm running out of options for transferable points with personal cards alone. What would you do if you were in my shoes? I picked this question for a number of reasons, but I I guess that my first question is, if this is so taking Dan's situation into account, having a limited amount of energy, a limited amount of gas in the tank, would you recommend product resale? And if you would, how would you recommend going about it?
Not in general. I mean, product resale, um, it's not as easy as it sounds, I guess. So because you encounter all kinds of miscellaneous problems from having things you're selling damage from stuff that's sent mysteriously not being received from returns and you could probably mention many more issues than me, Nick, but I know when I was doing reselling I didn't like it. I stopped doing it. So that doesn't seem like the number one thing in my book that I would turn to if I were him.
I agree. That was my first instinct, was that product resale is like maybe the most like energy intensive of the various ways to earn miles and points. So I would look at that as probably not the right avenue if that's the boat that you're in, because especially if you're not going to do buying groups. I think if you were going to do product resale, then buying groups would be the least energy intensive of the various ways to earn points. I can understand the hesitations. There's reasons to be hesitant about buying groups. Some people love them and do great with them, and other people, are not comfortable with the risk there. So I get it if you're not comfortable with the risk, but I would say that I used to do a lot of resale, and I mostly stopped it almost entirely because it took up so much time and energy. It was like having another full-time job.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think that's the right way. So I think we're both on the same page that I wouldn't probably recommend doing that. Facebook Marketplace too, like you're going to meet people and go places and they don't show up. And it's like there's a lot of hassle involved with that. So what would you recommend then? I mean, for somebody who's interested in earning more points, but without expending a lot of extra energy. I mean, not everybody has the time and energy to put into the hobby. So A, what would you recommend? And B, what are your thoughts about business cards versus personal cards in that regard? Do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts about any of that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I know you
So
do.
I mean, the easiest way by far is to keep earning points from welcome bonuses. And um if you're running out of like personal cards that where you could get welcome bonuses, the obvious solution is to start applying for business cards. And you don't need a reselling business to do that. There's any number of things that you may be already doing that you can technically count as your business. You can apply as a sole proprietor, and even if you haven't had any income yet from your business, which could be something as like I'm, starting a novel, or you know, I have a website that I'm planning on, making a lot of money on the website in the future, and so I've been designing it or whatever. That's your business, and you can apply for and probably get approved for business cards and keep earning points through new welcome offers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's going to be your low hanging fruit, your easiest way of earning points from home. The other thing, if you're not comfortable with buying groups, maybe this isn't going to be for you either. But gift card resale is another thing that people do. They buy gift cards on sale and resell them, and that can often all be done online from the computer. So that's another good way to earn some potential pajama points. And we've talked before about things like paying your taxes with a credit card to meet welcome bonus requirements. There are a number of different things, funding Kiva loans that you can do from home that would be lower energy methods that aren't going to necessarily work for everybody, but or aren't going to be necessarily desirable for everybody, but that I would probably pursue sooner than resale, unless you're willing to kind of dive into resale with the energy that it is kind of like another job that is somewhat profitable depending on how much time and effort you want to put into it. That would be my thought anyway.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. And when I dip my toes into buying groups, even those
Yeah.
I found a lot of aggravation involved. Not from the groups themselves, but from things like the vendors not shipping, canceling my orders because I'm trying to ship to somewhere other than my home and things like
Mhm.
that. And the only one I found pretty darn easy and low effort to work with was Aligned Incentives, which is all about buying gift cards and electronically, and then you just upload the gift card to their site and they pay you. So that was very, very low effort. Not all the deals, most deals aren't like that great of a deal. Like you might be losing like up to 3%, which isn't good for that. But in some cases, you can do pretty well with something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and in some cases, if you're losing 1 or 2%, you might be earning that much just from the base level earnings of your card. And if you're spending towards a welcome bonus, then obviously you're coming out farther
Then
ahead. So,
yeah, then
so
3% or even 4% could be worth it. Yeah.
could be worth it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So those are things that I would probably also recommend ahead of product resale. And that's not to say product resale is bad. I enjoyed it and earned lots of points from it for years. And it was fun. Like I loved going to the movies and like stepping out of the movie and seeing what sold on Amazon while I was sitting there watching a movie and then going home and packing it up and bringing it to the post office. But all that stuff, certainly was time and labor intensive. So best of luck to you, Dan. I hope that helps a little bit anyway. And if you've enjoyed this show and you'd like to get more of this stuff in your email inbox each day or each week, you want to go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list, follow us on all the various social media, join our Frequent Miler Insiders Facebook group where you can ask questions like this and get responses from lots of other people any day you want. So thank you very much for being with us today. If you have a question that you'd like to be considered for a future question of the week or a comment that you'd like to be considered for the Giant Mailbag, you can send that too.
Send it to mailbag@frequentmiler.com. Bye, everybody.